is all he's got to stick it to the bitumen, and he does.
How about this guy? Nash Morris will wrap it up in the Super Cheap Autos Norwell Motorplex. Second will be Josh Haynes. Dylan Thomas strong, Rusty right again.
Hello and welcome to the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series panel show as we review round number 3 from Queensland Raceway and have a look at what's coming up for round number 4 at Morgan Park. But Queensland was the halfway point of our championship. I'm Matt Kavanagh and I welcome Stephen White to the panel show. Let's have a talk about it. The TO2 Muscle Cars were their headline act, and didn't they put on a show?
Yeah, fantastic show. Thanks, Matty. Great to be here again with you. TA2, what do you say? Action, pretty much unbelievable right through the whole event and the whole weekend. They just turn it on for us, don't they? I mean, Nash Morris was very dominant. And a local guy there, done a lot of miles around QR, obviously, and doesn't come from far down the road at Norwell, but a little bit of pedigree in Nash's family too, by the way. But what an interesting battle with Josh Haynes behind him and certainly Dylan Thomas, who they aren't talking championship yet, but they're definitely gathering points and looking towards something. So, yeah, halfway point's very important. Very important.
They're not talking championship points, but we are going to talk championship points. Now, Dylan Thomas walks away with the lead there, but Josh Haynes, second in every race. He has clawed his way back a little bit, hasn't he, in the championship points?
Yeah, very aware of where he is, young Josh, and you can see the way he races. He has a pretty old head on young shoulders, has some great advice of great people around him, and when he competes you can see that he's thinking, and that's pretty good. That's a pretty good pedigree for a racing driver. Dylan, a bit of an old stager. He won't like me saying that, but a bit of an old stager, and he knows what it takes to win something, and look, he won't admit it, and good on him. But everybody's looking towards the end of the year, aren't they? And, we're 3 rounds down for the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series. We've got, we're halfway along, and those guys are really thinking about where we go from here.
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's have a little bit of talk about Brad Gardner. It wasn't the best start for him in qualifying. He did have some issues, and they had to work on the car with an oil pump. Gets back out on track, and in our Sunday race, and we saw him come off turn number 4 at over 200 kilometres an hour.
Yeah, pretty scary ride, that one. I mean, talking to Brad afterwards, it's 220. The speed of the car was 220 as it left the circuit. You're going backwards. He unfortunately had a brake caliper seal fail. The car has turned 180 degree direction and gone backwards into the tyre wall, shifted that tyre wall some 15 metres, so it's pretty big impact. Thankfully, a testament to the TA2 safety and the Howe chassis, that car will be good to go for Morgan Park, but pretty scary, pretty frightening, and it is a testament to tell us, whilst these cars are moving around and bumping and rubbing, when something goes off and something goes wrong, it really tells us how fast these cars are really going.
And I think a fantastic attitude from Brad. Really looking forward to get back to Morgan Park. Tough work. I know they've had a hard season. Round number 1, they end up in the tyre barrier. It was always going to be hard and done with endurance races. They do double the kilometres. So chewing through a bit of budget this year, but it's great to see he's going to return in round number 4. Now, a couple of other people returning, though, is Russell Wright, who came back, made the top 10 shootout as well. Yeah. He just worked his way through them. He was up to about 4th position there in race number 3. Unfortunately, race number 4 turned a little bit. We had some rain come in very early in that race, and he came in and took a tyre change, took a little bit too long in the pit stop and pushed his way back down the field, but great return from him.
Yeah, absolutely. Former champion, back to the category, done some racing overseas in America. So, fantastic to have Russell back. Yeah, that wet race, what an interesting thing. We're standing in pit lane, it's raining. They called it or declared it a wet race. Nash Morris and under the direction of Paul, I suppose, was straight into the pits, had that tyre change done. He was waiting at the end of pit lane for the race started. And look, that's where it was won and lost, because 5 minutes after that, it wasn't raining in pit lane again, but the track was wet enough for Nash to get out there and get some good lap times, put some good lap times together and get through to the end. You had Josh Haynes staying out there on slicks and Dylan Thomas, and again we're talking about trying to be a little bit conservative but consistent, and Josh was the fastest lap of the race, second last lap of the race. So the track started to dry out but not quick enough for those guys, and probably the other way is they probably didn't want it any shorter because they were losing positions whilst it was wet. So yeah, really interesting race. In fact, probably the highlight of that race was the thinking man's game, what these guys needed to do to make sure they could get their car in the best position at the best time, and so 50-50 bet was the way to go, which was interesting. Yeah.
Well, another one who took that bet was Hayden Jackson, of course, who unfortunately in qualifying had some issues with the car, didn't make it out, started off the rear of the grid, worked his way through, and he ended up in 5th in that final race. So working his way up the grid, some really good driving from him.
Yeah, brilliant drive from Hayden, and it was actually interesting to hear his career path. You know, he's done those 3 or 4 years in Toyota 86s or Gazoo Racing, and he's come to the TA2, obviously raced last year, late towards last year, but yeah, that car's on song, and I think he's a bit of a quiet achiever, Hayden. It's fantastic to see him going so well.
But it wasn't all about TA2 muscle cars this weekend. Of course, we kicked off the first round of the EFS 4x4 Australian XL Series as well. They've got 3 rounds this year. They're joining us for the Hi-Tech Super Series, but it started at Queensland Raceway. Now, Cam Wilson, he's been an elder statesman, I suppose, of the category. He's a multiple-time champion. I don't want to say he dominated on the weekend. He won all the races, but he really came under attack from Tyler Collins, Jack Wood and Jalen Robotham in that final race, and they exchanged first position a number of times.
Yeah, that last race, I think I've had so many people talk to me about that last Hyundai XL race, powered by EFS, and I'll get that right because EFS are a great sponsor and certainly a partner in that series. Brett Peters, who category managers, said how good was that last race? But everybody talks about it. I've had other Hyundai XL competitors talk about it, even other categories. Cam Wilson showed a bit of wily experience there. It was an unknown result going into turn 3 and 4, and yet come out turn 6 and there's Cam Wilson in front. So fair bit of depth in that series. Great young talent in it, and I can't wait till they get to Sydney. It's going to be great.
No, it's going to be fantastic in Sydney, and the numbers I think are just going to get bigger throughout that Australian series. I mean, only 3 rounds this year, but it's expanding.
What that series is trying to do is provide an avenue or a platform for the best of the best, if you like. There'll be some key runners out of all the states that can join that series, and that's where the vision for that series will be. So nobody wants to dilute the state series. We want them to run on a national stage, but let's get some great competitors there that are focused on maybe trying to go that next step, get to a national platform, enjoy the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series platform and get some great TV, and obviously continue to race and get their name out there.
Steve, next we've caught up with Cam Wilson from the Hyundai XL Series.
I've done a lot of different racing in different things over the times. I started out 20-something years ago in Geminis here in Queensland. Similar sort of category, but this is 10 times better. I've done some utes and things like that. Best thing with this is, like, bang for buck, the closeness of the racing and then the racecraft game that sort of comes into it. It's just awesome. There's nothing that I've raced that comes close. The drafting effect and all that, the pack racing, everyone's got to work in with sort of each other, give each other a bit of love and room, but you can run around this track even, you can run 2 wide the whole way and only be half a second off the outright absolute pace, by getting that benefit of the draft. I'm 48 now, so I find it awesome, to be honest with you. I've sort of had the last couple of years off effectively and managed to step back in, and I don't know, it makes me feel more youthful, certainly being able to run with them. They're fast, and they're hungry. Maybe I'm not quite as fast outright, but I've got a bit of experience, and that certainly plays out a little bit, and knowing when to go and when to sort of hold back. You can certainly drive these cars to the death where then they're no good at the end of the race, and of course at the end of the day what really matters is the last lap, being there, having the car still good for the last lap. So, but I love the fact people as young as 15 are racing against and fast. It's awesome. It's such a good category.
And it's the final lap here of the final race for the Australian Hyundai XL Series, sponsored by EFS 4x4 Accessories. In the final corner, turn number 6, they come out. Lockie, this one's going to be close.
He has been attacked from pillar to post by the young guns all weekend long, but experience comes to the fore, and it's Cam Wilson who completes a clean sweep in round 1 of the Australian XL Series at Queensland Raceway. 4 wins from 4 races, maximum points to kick off his 2023 title campaign.
It's just been really, really cool. Super stoked. We're on the Nankang tyres as a controlled tyre. They're the perfect tyre for the car, they really are. They're absolutely fantastic. So I couldn't be happier to be racing this category. And if you're thinking about getting into racing, honestly, you need to look at getting into these via Track Attack and the Australian XL Super Series that we're doing here. Absolutely.
Well, we can't thank Queensland Raceway enough for having us up there for the 2 days of thunder. It was round number 3 for us. We're going to have a short break and come back talking Legend Cars Australia. Welcome back to the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series panel show. And for round number 4 of our series, we are joined by the Legend Cars Australia at Morgan Park. And to talk everything about these Legend cars is Lachlan Ward joining us on the panel show. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Steve, mate, this is a fantastic little category. These cars move around, they're wild to watch, you've got big numbers. Lockie, tell us all about them.
Oh, if they look that way, I can tell you they feel triple that way. They're a really awesome car, little short wheelbase like a go-kart, slide around a lot, understeer a lot, and that sequential gearbox, you can't beat it.
Tell us, break down a Legend car for the people at home if they don't know what it is. It's a third scale car, so it's like a miniature version, but they look like hot rods.
Yeah, exactly right. So they look like little hot rods. Motorbike engine gearbox in them, so they're not actually a car engine. They run sideways parallel to like what a normal motorbike would. We've got two engines out at the moment. So we've got the 1250 XJR engine, which is the old Yamaha motor, and we've got a new Yamaha motor, which is the 860 cc water-cooled engine, which, a couple of the boys have got them now. We've got about 7 on track, and they're doing well in them.
What sort of competitor would race in your series? And is it the up-and-comer? Is it the person that's coming off dirt, perhaps, or even just a guy that enjoys his sport?
Yeah, so the best thing about Legend cars is the variety of competitors we got. So you got someone like myself who came out of karts and was making my way through motorsport. And I use Legend cars to learn how to drive a car, because if you get a car that doesn't want to turn and slides a lot, imagine getting a car that does do that. You're in a different world. So we've got drivers like that, a couple of younger guys, and then we've got all the way up to the people that are just having fun and going away for a weekend racing, and they're thinking about what pub they're going to go to that night instead of the actual racing sometimes. So yeah, it's good.
And if people want to get involved in the Legend cars, what's the sort of cost around that?
Yeah, so you can buy brand new cars now for about $35,000, but you can pick up a second-hand car anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. And be competitive straight away. Like, we got a car at the moment at the home, we bought it for about $8,000, and we'll get that on track and we'll be up the front for sure.
How many competitors in a category? So a field is around about 20, 25 cars. That's the sort of figure you're looking for?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we've got another shipment of cars coming in not long, and once we get that in, we're going to be up and over 30, which will be really good.
Look, we're going to head to Morgan Park. It's the first time you've joined us here for the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series. How excited are you about that?
Oh, I think Morgan Park is going to be one of the best tracks for Legend cars. We really suit that tight and twisty type of track, and that's what Morgan Park is. So I think the boys are going to put on a real show up there. We look at our last round at Winton per se, like we had 5 cars, I think, in one of the races separated by less than a second over the line. And that's just the top 5, You got a group back then probably running from 8th to 15th, and they all were separated within 2 seconds, So there's not much better racing out there than Legend cars, so I'm really looking forward to watching the racing.
It's great to have you as part of the Hi-Tech Oils Super Series, but you've got some very exciting things in the category, which is really bringing more and more people to be involved. Tell us about what you've got coming up overseas.
We're running at the Goodstock Festival, which is a big music festival, and Legend cars are the main event. So we race from like sort of 6 to 9 p.m. Every night, and then we combine the points over the 3 days, and then we get our winner. So we've got drivers from America, drivers from Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia obviously going over to race, and subsidised by the series, so we get flights over there and accommodation are paid for by the series, and then get your car over there, you own your mechanic. It's really exciting.
This category lends itself to having action and obviously the availability of getting to places, so for them to be joining the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series is a real privilege for us to be happening, and certainly something that we'll see the year out with, which is great.
Well, Lachlan, you're a former champion yourself. If someone wants to get involved in this, how do they go about it?
So best way to get involved, we've got Facebook pages. Get in contact through Facebook. We've got a website. Get in contact through the website. You'll probably talk to my dad. So my dad's just taken over as sort of the manager of the category now. And then we'll work out a way to get you in a car. We'll organise, if we know someone that's selling a car, we'll get you a car. Or if you want to buy a new car, you can go down that route as well.
Well, thanks for joining us on the panel show, Lockie. It's been great to have you, of course. Legend Cars Australia joining us at round 4, Morgan Park of the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series. We can't wait for all the action. We know what exciting racing they put on. We're going to go to a short break and be back after this. Welcome back from the break to the Hi-Tech Oil Super Series panel show. And what's going on here? We've got a change out in the Legend Cars Australia. The hierarchy's coming in.
I come all the way up here. I'm not going to let him take all the limelight, that's for sure.
I think we can see who's in charge.
Oh, I definitely can see who's in charge. Tony Ward, welcome to the panel show, the category manager for Legend Cars Australia. Tell us how you got involved in this fantastic category.
Oh, look, it all started obviously on the motorsport journey with Lachlan, go-karting through several series, Formula Ford. Legend Cars always had a spot in our heart. It was fun. The guys in the category, guys and girls in the category are awesome to race with. It's cheap, so we got drawn back to it. It's at the moment Lachlan's taken over some of the social media and helping out with the series, just as an evolution of a kid getting older.
What's your vision for the category for you, or in general, maybe your involvement or Lachlan's involvement going forward?
Well, look, he's doing a double degree at uni at the moment, so he's got to finish that. That's first and foremost. We'll get in and make some changes to sort it out, help it grow. John, who owns the category at the moment, is on his own, and you're talking speedway across the whole country. You know, Perth, Queensland, lots through ACT and New South Wales, plus the Asphalt Series. It's quite a big. There's 100 cars on track at any one time, so. John's got his hands full with the dirt side of it. We've said we'll take over the asphalt for now, get a feel for it, almost like a due diligence period. We've taken over the part sales as well. Obviously, everyone wants to grow their category. The lucky thing for us, we don't have to work too hard. It's probably grown 200% over the last couple of years. We're hoping to have about 25 cars on track at Morgan Park for the next round. We've got 4 cars coming in and another shipment on its way after that. We'll be up in the 30s next year.
How cheap is it to run one of these cars through 6 rounds over a year, something like that?
In my opinion, it's got to be one of the best budget categories out there. I did a whole year with Lachlan in 2019 for about 13,000. That was 8 rounds.
Your reliability is obviously a factor in that, and obviously the fact that it's cost effective is because of the cars.
We just did a compression test on Scott Melville's car, which is 2 seasons old, and he's still got a little bit less than when it was brand new. So we're really excited that maintenance side of things is not going to be a drag on them. Obviously, if you're not mechanical, that can be quite a cost in motorsport, So.
Well, Lockie stepped out this season. Does that mean we might see you step in for a round?
Well, geez, you don't want to see that because we've got a great reputation for being a good category where people don't smash, and I think if I got in there, that might change. I take my hat off to them. The drivers, they're in a world of their own.
Well, thanks for joining us, Tony. It's been fantastic to have you come in and give us an insight into how the category is expanding and what's happening in the future.
Oh, look, thanks for having us. Yeah, we're really looking forward to a great round up there at Morgan Park and for the rest of the year. I think Morgan Park is going to show a lot of the people that we're quite an entertaining category. I'll guarantee you there'll be a few 4 or 5 wide on those corners, even though it's a small track.
We're now joined by Carl Begg, the president of the Queensland Production Cars. Welcome, Carl.
Hey guys, how are you?
Thanks for joining us, Carl. It's been fantastic to catch up with you today. Obviously, you're the president of Queensland Production Cars and wear many other hats along the sport. But effectively, today we're talking about Queensland Production Cars having joined us at QR and put on some fantastic racing, particularly a night race, joining Morgan Park in a couple of weeks' time. How fantastic.
Yeah, had a great event. The competitor numbers were getting up there, and some of the racing was outstanding.
Yeah, strong fields coming in, Carl, and we saw the 2 one-hour endurance races on the Saturday evening as well, and we've seen so many competitors really enjoy that part of the racing.
Yeah, it works really well. So that's why we had the sort of 2 one-hour races in quick succession with a half-hour gap, was to allow refueling and servicing of the cars without actually entering into a full 2-hour race, which involves a lot more crew and refueling equipment. So.
And Carl, where do you see the Australian Production Car Series heading in the future? Are we going to see more rounds nationally?
This year's calendar actually played out pretty well with some nice gaps in between the rounds. But anywhere between sort of 5 to 7 rounds, I think, is probably the comfortable number. And as long as we keep seeing strong competitor numbers and we keep going to attractive circuits, I think that'll continue to grow.
Everybody looks to supercars, but I think that categories like yours and others have got a real stranglehold, a real footprint in the sport.
We've got people from all walks of life and all levels of motorsport. There's not many supercars that don't jump at supercar drivers that don't jump at the chance to jump on a production car for the 6-hour or even some of the state level endurance races. Myself and Dave Russell have been partnered up and driven my car at several state level and national level events, and those guys love it because some of these cars are quick. They're obviously not supercars quick, but and it takes a certain amount of skill to make them to drive them fast because they are loose. Sort of a one-size-fits-all category where you can take people from any form of motorsport, throw them in their car, and they can generally hit the ground running pretty quickly.
We can't wait to have the Queensland Production Cars join us at Morgan Park. Is there a bit of a favourite area or section we're going to see some fantastic racing there?
Yeah, Morgan Park's always a great track. It really, it's quite technical and car setup's pretty key there. I know that there's been some recent resurfacing work there, and we haven't been there since that. Our competitors love Morgan Park as a venue, so yeah, we should see some more strong entry numbers for that as well.
Well, Carl, we thank you for your time today. We cannot wait to see the Queensland production cars back with us at round number 4 at Morgan Park. We hope to see you back in the series very shortly as well.
Yeah, definitely be jumping on the calendar later in the year and next year. So look forward to it.
Well, we thank Carl for his time in joining us here on the panel show today. But Steve, next we've got to look forward to round 4 at Morgan Park. It's a tight little twisty track. It's out there near Warwick in Queensland. We're going inland. It's going to be cold. I'm excited about this one.
I'm not sure about being cold. I'm from Victoria, Matt, so it'll be all right up there at Queensland. Yeah, fantastic round. Look, very similar to the fields that we had at QR, obviously TA2, but RX8 are joining us again. Yellow Express RX8 Championship, fantastic to have those guys back on board. Obviously legend cars, as we've spoken about during the show. But again, bolstered by those Queensland categories, Queensland production cars, QTCC, replica Tourers, and Australian Trans Ams. But I'm sure the TA2 guys will love it. And look, going forward from there, obviously the RX8 Cup being there again. I mean, I know they've been there in the past, but joining our series and now running home with us is going to be fantastic to have those guys on board. But yeah, really action-packed weekend, and I can't wait. I mean, Morgan Park is a tight, twisty circuit, but very entertaining. And really, the outcome isn't well known because it does change a lot there, so it's great.
Well, yes, Steve, it's going to be fantastic racing. Make sure you join us for round number 4 from Morgan Park, the 8th and 9th of July. And, of course, it will be live on SBS from 1 p.m. It's exciting racing. Thank you for joining us here on the High Tech Oils Super Series panel show. We can't wait to see you at round 4.